The Inkatha Freedom Party is a South African political organization established by Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, which encouraged the resurgence of Zulu nationalism and created a platform for Buthelezi to advance his political ambitions. Although registered as a national party, it has had only minor electoral success outside its home province of KwaZulu-Natal. During the first decade of the post-apartheid period, the IFP received over 90% of its support from ethnic Zulus.
Well, it's very difficult to assess now what effects the walkout of the IFP is going to have. But what we believe that as it moves closer towards the election, it could have an impact on the violent situation in Natal.
Mangosuthu Buthelezi, a former member of the ANC Youth League, founded the Inkatha National Cultural Liberation Movement on 21 March 1975. In 1994, the name was changed to Inkatha Freedom Party. Buthelezi used the name Inkatha, which was rooted in a previous Zulu cultural movement called Inkatha Yenkululeko Yesizwe, which was formed in 1928 by King Solomon Dinizulu. Inkatha is the grass coil that is placed on the head to carry and ease the weight of a heavy burden. It is powerfully woven together to prevent it from crumbling and breaking. Inkatha was kept in the sacred heart of the Zulu royal house, and it was believed that Zulu kings derived their powers to rule from Inkatha. The British destroyed it when they raided Ulundi and burnt the royal palace during the kingship of Cetshwayo Kampande in the 19th century. Therefore, Inkatha has great significance in Zulu culture as it represents the spiritual and political powers of Zulu kings. The dawn of apartheid in the 1940s marked major changes for all black South Africans. In 1953, the South African government introduced the Homelands, and during the 1960s, the government's objective was to form a tribal authority and provide for the gradual development of self-governing Bantu national units. The first territorial authority for the Zulu people was established in 1970, which defined the Zulu homeland of KwaZulu. On 30 March 1972, the first Legislative Assembly of KwaZulu was constituted by South African Parliamentary Proclamation. Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, a cousin of the Zulu king, was elected as Chief Executive. Buthelezi, who was a former member of the ANC but a passionate Zulu nationalist, was a shrewd and proud individual with great staying power. He used his exceptional political skills to launch a platform that formally rejected the homeland system, but also used it as a cover for building a mass movement. In this climate, Buthelezi formally relaunched the Inkatha cultural movement on 21 March 1975 at KwaNzimela in northern KwaZulu. Several founding members of Inkatha had either been former members of ANC or members of the new urban middle class. The latter saw the need for a strong organization to advance their class interests, but did not accept the idea of an independent Zulu homeland. However, the strength and support for Buthelezi's political ambitions was the traditional Zulu leadership, which was heavily dependent on the apartheid state for its privileged status. Unlike King Solomon's Inkatha, the new organization was only open to Zulus and citizens of KwaZulu-Natal and articulated a progressive agenda for freedom from its inception. It was only in the 1980s that membership was extended to all black South Africans, including men, women, and the youth. When membership was extended, branches opened in KwaZulu-Natal, the Transvaal, the Orange Free State, and the Western Cape. Soon the Inkatha Cultural Liberation Movement had between 150 and 200,000 members. To promote super-ethnic nationalism, Buthelezi established the Black Unity Front for Nationalists, both inside and outside the homeland system. In 1976, Inkatha established its Women Brigade and Youth Brigade to champion the voices of oppressed women and the youth. Through its structures, Inkatha mobilized support for liberation, igniting non-violent activism against apartheid. Inkatha worked closely with the ANC leadership in exile. At the same time, Inkatha taught self-help and self-reliance. In 1977, Gail Gerhardt, an American scholar, wrote that, "To argue that Buthelezi is a net asset to the regime because he lends credibility to the Bantustans is seriously to undervalue his role as a propagandist for nationalism. Buthelezi is in fact the strongest evidence that black initiatives can lead to the backfiring of the best-laid plans of the apartheid strategists." Educated blacks viewed Buthelezi with suspicion and saw him as representing largely the elderly, the traditional, and those in the government's pay. There is no doubt that Buthelezi was a stumbling block to the realization of the government's homeland strategy, more so than any other opposition. His tough stand against independence for the Zulu people, which formed 20% of the total population, destroyed the government's hope to construct a constellation of black states out of the homeland system. By the late 1970s, the idea of economically viable homeland system had hopelessly faded. Even the Transkei, the most promising prospect, could meet only 10% of its own food requirements and provided for only 20% of its budgeted expenses with its own resources. The great majority of people in the homelands were dependent on pensions, and the money migrant laborers sent back to their families mostly flowed back to the shops in the common area. Migrant laborer therefore generated an even greater dependency and amplified poverty in the homelands. In 1978, Mangosuthu Buthelezi established the South African Black Alliance, uniting Indians, Coloureds, and black political organizations. The Inkatha Freedom Party conducted mass rallies to gauge public opinion regarding support for international sanctions and disinvestment. The vast majority responded with no, fearing that the poorest segments of society would bear the brunt of such measures. Consequently, the IFP took a stand against sanctions and rejected the armed resistance. As Inkatha's popularity surged, Buthelezi was summoned to Pretoria by Justice Minister Jimmy Kruger, who insisted that Inkatha must limit its membership to Zulu-speaking South Africans only. Buthelezi firmly resisted this demand, affirming that Inkatha would remain inclusive of all oppressed South Africans. In 1979, Buthelezi began engaging in discussions with the African National Congress in exile regarding the advocacy for sanctions and the armed struggle to dismantle apartheid. Notably, the IFP had initially been formed with discreet support from the ANC. Responding to an invitation from Oliver Tambo, Buthelezi led an Inkatha delegation to meet with the ANC's exile representatives in London. For 2.5 days, the ANC attempted to convince Inkatha to back their armed struggle and to facilitate the influx of weapons and guerrilla fighters into South Africa through Inkatha's networks. Inkatha ultimately declined, adhering to its foundational principle of non-violence. Buthelezi also resisted any pressure to support sanctions and disinvestment, understanding the detrimental effects these actions would have on the economy that the people were striving to reclaim. Disagreement persisted between the two organizations, and while the ANC promised to reconvene in December, that meeting never materialized. When ANC member Mr. Cap Zungu leaked details of their London meeting to the Sunday Times of London, Oliver Tambo swiftly issued a statement denying the occurrence of such discussions. Buthelezi was unjustly accused of leaking the information, paving the way for a significant propaganda campaign against him. In 1980, the Buthelezi Commission of Inquiry into Social, Economic, and Political Justice was established to explore the potential for redefining KwaZulu and Natal as a single self-governing unit, aiming to escape the constraints of apartheid. The commission favored a market economy over socialist or communist alternatives. On June 2, during the 25th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, ANC General Secretary Alfred Nzo launched an attack that would initiate a protracted campaign of vilification against Inkatha and Buthelezi. Despite being aware of Buthelezi's significant role under ANC guidance, Tambo remained silent. Buthelezi's previous role within the African National Congress initially fostered a close relationship between the ANC and his organization as they collaborated in the struggle against apartheid. However, by the early 1980s, Inkatha began to be perceived as an obstacle to the ANC, which had gained considerable political influence through the United Democratic Front, surpassing Inkatha in the Pan-Africanist Congress in impact. While Inkatha's leadership had initially championed non-violence, evidence from the early 1990s indicates that, amid negotiations, a violent conflict erupted between members of Inkatha and the ANC, leading to the establishment of self-protection units by Inkatha and self-defense units by the ANC for self-defense. The relationship between ANC and Inkatha soon soured, transforming into deep-rooted animosity. The ANC accused Buthelezi of being a counter-revolutionary, viewing him as a more significant threat than other homeland leaders, whom they considered mere puppets of the apartheid regime. Buthelezi believed that the armed struggle and international sanctions undermined the prospect of a peaceful change, asserting that violence could not be avoided by merely adhering to anti-communist sentiments. He maintained that any ensuing violence stemmed from the failures of both white and black leaders to maintain control over their followers. As a leader of a Bantustan, Buthelezi's power was intricately linked to the South African state and economy. With increasing demands for sanctions from anti-apartheid leaders globally, he increasingly faced criticism and was perceived as a puppet of the government alongside other Bantustan leaders. His strong tribal affiliations and emphasis on ethnic loyalty over national unity further fueled accusations that Inkatha contributed to societal division, culminating in a near civil war between Zulu loyalists and ANC supporters in KwaZulu-Natal. In response to the prevailing political climate, Buthelezi proposed a radical alternative to the National Party's approach, a multiracial federation. In 1981, he established a commission advocating for the integration of the predominantly white province of Natal with the KwaZulu homeland. His vision included governance by an assembly elected through proportional representation and a multiracial executive that would share power. He also suggested that the unified authority manage education, the local economy, and welfare services. These ideas gained traction during a multiracial conference in Natal in the mid-1980s, garnering support from both liberal opposition and business leaders in the region. However, this proposal represented the last viable opportunity for the apartheid government to maintain oversight over the evolving political landscape. Should they endorse regional integration in KwaZulu-Natal without exerting control, it could inspire similar movements across the nation, ultimately enabling the election of black leaders capable of achieving positions in the national cabinet. Unfortunately, Botha's response to Buthelezi's proposition was dismissive, adhering to the apartheid framework by stressing that Buthelezi could only address matters relevant to his own territory, while excluding him from issues governed by the central authority. In an effort to fragment South Africa and strip the oppressed majority of their citizenship rights, Prime Minister Botha proposed the notion of establishing KwaZulu as an independent nation under the leadership of Mangosuthu Buthelezi. However, Buthelezi vehemently rejected this proposal. He staunchly advocated for unified South Africa and dismissed the Bantustan idea entirely. His principled stance aligned with the mission given to him by the African National Congress to challenge the apartheid regime from within. In a show of solidarity, Inkatha collaborated with the Progressive Federal Party and organized a joint protest against the government's plan to transfer the regions of Kwangwane and Ingwavuma to Swaziland. Ultimately, Buthelezi took legal action against the government and succeeded in blocking this plan. Although Inkatha was allied with the African National Congress in the struggle against apartheid, they took opposing views on sanctions placed by the international community on South Africa. In 1984, Buthelezi traveled to the USA and met personally with President Ronald Reagan and argued disinvestment was economically harming black South African workers. During the 1983 constitutional reforms, the IFP and the White Progressive Federal Party opposed the changes and demanded the inclusion of black people in a Bill of Rights. The IFP campaigned internationally for disinvestments as an incentive for reforms. Rising opposition against the apartheid regime and homeland governments faced strong pushback from Mangosuthu Buthelezi. He took harsh measures to suppress dissent from students and community groups, resulting in violent confrontations with the United Democratic Front and its allies. Tensions between the African National Congress and Inkatha became commonplace, particularly in regions such as Natal and various townships in Gauteng. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission has alleged that Buthelezi secretly collaborated with police, security forces, and state-sponsored assassination squads. During the Convention for a Democratic South Africa, the IFP formed an alliance with the Afrikaner Conservative Party, which had splintered from the National Party in 1983. This division arose in response to P.W. Botha's introduction of the tricameral parliament, a reform that offered limited political representation to coloureds and Indians. Previously, the IFP had steadfastly refused to engage in negotiations with Botha's government, insisting that the release of political prisoners be prioritized. Concerned about a diminishing power base, Buthelezi allegedly entered into a collaboration with the South African Defence Force, which provided military training for Zulu militias under a covert initiative known as Operation Marion, starting in the 1980s. In the lead-up to South Africa's first democratic elections, Inkatha members were implicated in numerous acts of violence and massacres, including the Trustfeed massacre on December 3, 1988, and the Boipatong massacre on June 17, 1992. The Boipatong massacre occurred on the night of June 17, 1992, in the township of Boipatong, located near Vereeniging. A group of roughly 300 armed men linked to the IFP and based in the nearby KwaMadala hostel launched an assault on the Joe Slovo informal settlement. This brutal attack was seen as an effort to destabilize the fragile negotiations between the National Party government and the ANC. In reaction to this atrocity, the ANC withdrew from the discussions, holding the National Party government responsible for the violence. Okay, please look out for a video on the Boipatong massacre in the near future. This one is already a long video and I didn't want to make it too long, so we'll do Boipatong as a standalone video because there's so much to cover. And while I'm still talking, let me quickly say please subscribe to the channel if you haven't and hit that like button as it helps me out a lot. Thank you.
In 1988, the community of Trustfeed was divided by a power struggle. Upper Trustfeed became known as UDF territory and Lower Trustfeed belonged to Inkatha.
In December 1988, a devastating event shook the nation and forever changed the lives of residents in a small community of Trustfeeds, a rural village in the Natal Midlands. A gathering primarily composed of women was held at the Sithole homestead to mourn the death of a community member who had passed away from natural causes. However, at around 3 a.m., these moments of grief transformed into terror when armed assailants launched a vicious attack. They kicked down doors and opened fire on anyone who moved or made a sound, leading to what would later be referred to as the Trustfeeds massacre. Tragically, the onslaught claimed the lives of 11 individuals and left 2 others with severe injuries. Among the victims was a 4-year-old boy, while the oldest victim was a 66-year-old woman. The ensuing investigation encountered significant hurdles as police witnesses hesitated to speak out against colleagues who were found to be deliberately targeting individuals linked to the very organization they secretly supported, the Inkatha Freedom Party. By October 1991, 7 members of the South African police, led by Captain Brian Victor Mitchell, faced trial on 11 counts of murder and 8 counts of attempted murder. This trial was groundbreaking, marking the first time a senior police officer involved in the anti-apartheid struggle was prosecuted and sentenced to death for contributing to the pervasive political violence that had troubled South Africa since 1984. It exposed the orchestration and backing of violence by state actors, commonly referred to as a third force, rather than exclusively by groups like the ANC or their rival Inkatha. The trial, which drew significant media coverage over its 6-month duration, revealed stark revelations from Mitchell, who claimed he had ordered the attack on the Sithole homestead on the spur of the moment. However, his statements were fraught with inconsistencies and illogical elements. On April 30, 1992, he was sentenced to death on 11 counts. Although the sentence was later reduced to 30 years in prison, his co-defendants received effective sentences of 15 years each for their role in the assault. In an unexpected twist, Mitchell later applied for and was granted amnesty by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a decision that raised serious questions regarding the integrity and fairness of the amnesty process.
Unfortunately, when President Mandela was in Tanzania on foreign soil, he made what I consider to be very tragic statements. President Mandela indicated that I, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party, am the problem for the consolidation of democracy in South Africa.
After Inkatha entered into a solidarity agreement with the Afrikaner Conservative Party, both groups declared their commitment to fight together for land and freedom against the common enemy, reflecting an unusual alliance between the Boere and Zulu communities. During this period, black-on-black violence surged in KwaZulu and the Witwatersrand, primarily fueled by the African National Congress strategy of a people's war. Perceived as a challenge to political control, the ANC actively targeted Inkatha supporters. Over the following years, approximately 20,000 black people lost their lives due to the violence, which took forms of counterattacks, preemptive strikes, and acts of revenge. As South Africa moved towards establishing a new constitution, bloodshed continued in the ongoing conflict between the IFP and the ANC. Both factions attempted to campaign in each other's strongholds in KwaZulu, often facing violent backlash from their opponents. The IFP was particularly resistant to certain elements of the proposed constitution, advocating instead for the recognition of an autonomous Zulu king, King Goodwill Zwelithini Kabheka Zulu, as head of state. Initially hesitant to participate in the 1994 elections, the IFP hesitated to register its candidacy. However, as it became clear that the elections would proceed regardless, the party signed up as Inkatha Freedom Party just in time. Due to the opposition of the constitution, the IFP was able to negotiate several concessions. KwaZulu-Natal was allocated 2 ballots for the provincial and national legislature. Greater provincial powers were granted. KwaZulu was included in the official name of the province, previously known simply as Natal, and recognition was extended to specific ethnic groups within the province. On election day, the IFP demonstrated its political influence by winning the majority of votes in KwaZulu-Natal, solidifying its position in the new political landscape of post-apartheid South Africa. In 1991, Mandela and Buthelezi, together with their delegations, met for the first time since Mandela's release at the Royal Hotel in Durban. After lengthy discussions, they publicly commit to hold joint rallies from that point onwards to end the violence between the two parties. Tragically, the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal immediately prevents Mandela from fulfilling his commitment to share a podium with Buthelezi. After the dismantling of the apartheid system in 1994, the IFP formed an uneasy coalition in the national government with their traditional political rival, the ANC. Despite these challenges, the coalition lasted until 2004, when the IFP joined the opposition benches. Buthelezi did not take part in the negotiation process and only decided to participate in the 1994 democratic elections after a great deal of local and international pressure. Since the first democratic elections, the IFP has suffered steadily declining support over the subsequent two general elections. Buthelezi was appointed Minister of Home Affairs in the first government of national unity in 1994. However, Buthelezi led a walkout of Zulu delegates from the National Assembly in early 1995 and clashed repeatedly with the newly elected president, Nelson Mandela. Buthelezi threatened to abandon the government of national unity entirely unless his Zulu constituency received greater recognition and autonomy from central government control. In the 2004 election, the IFP lost control of the province of KwaZulu-Natal to the ANC. Gavin Woods, a highly regarded member of the IFP, authored a scathing 11-page internal discussion document at the request of the Parliamentary Caucus following a meeting in October 2004. In this document, Woods asserted that the IFP lacked a discernible vision, mission, or philosophical foundation, as well as any clear national ambition, direction, or innovative and relevant policies. He cautioned the party about the necessity of recognizing Mangosuthu Buthelezi as a leader of a political party rather than embodying the party itself. Woods identified 1987 as a pivotal moment when the IFP began to lose its political momentum, emphasizing that prior to that year, the party maintained a strong national identity. He also criticized the IFP for its failure to prevent the ANC's violent campaigns against it, and expressed concern over the party's ineffective response to these attacks. During the initial caucus meeting, where he presented his document, Woods received generally positive feedback for his candid observations, despite the absence of IFP president Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Upon informing the party's National Council of the document, which Woods did not attend, Buthelezi addressed the matter by reading a prepared statement that criticized Woods' analysis. Subsequently, all copies of the document were ordered to be destroyed, though a few remained intact.